Hey everybody, I am Chef Tovia and welcome to The Sugary Sweet. Today I'm going to show you guys how to make mint chocolate chip Ermine, which is a French roux buttercream frosting, or a cooked flour frosting if you will. It sounds odd, but it's absolutely delicious and it's the perfect alternative to those who hate traditional gritty buttercream frosting. Please watch this video's entirety because I did give a lot of details and I may answer some of your questions in advance. Don't forget to follow me on The Sugary Sweet, and don't forget to check out the description box and check out my previous videos. So we're going to start with today's demo. So I had a few questions in my previous video, so I'm going to address them here. So I'm using all-purpose flour. Don't use self-rising or cake flour or anything like that. Use regular all-purpose flour, or you can use bread flour. So here I'm going to put the sugar into the same bowl with the flour, and I'm going to whisk the two together. What this does is it prevents any lumps from appearing in the milk mixture. So this is technically a milk roux. Roux is usually a combination of milk and fats, and sugar, of course, is a fat. So it's usually fat combined with milk or any type of liquid with flour, which is the roux. So I'm going to add the milk here to my hot saucepan, and I'm going to turn the heat down to medium. So what I'm going to do is just whisk in the center, and I'm just going to slowly pour in some of the flour and sugar mixture. Don't dump it all in at one time. And pour it in the middle. And I'm just whisking all over to make sure none of that has traveled to the sides of the pot. So I'm adding like 1 or 2 tablespoons at a time. Be patient because this will affect your final outcome of your frosting. So I'm just whisking constantly while adding the flour and sugar. Now, it's going to seem weird at first, but at the end, you're going to be quite pleased with your final outcome. So I'm going to whisk quicker because I don't want this to boil too vigorously yet. I'm going to turn the heat down to about medium-low because I don't want this to bubble too much while I'm still adding the remaining flour and sugar. Just remember to keep adding a little bit at a time. I'm gonna grab onto the sides of my pot. I'm gonna turn the heat down even more because I want to get all this flour and sugar in. Just going to add a little at a time. Now the color of yours may vary. I'm using unprocessed sugar, so that's why it looks a little yellowish or brownish. But if you're using white sugar, it will look a little bit whiter. So I'm just whisking in the final bit of that flour and sugar. Just scraping the edges of my pot. I'm going to turn the heat back up. And then I'm going to use my wooden spoon. And I'm just going to continue to scrape everything. Just make sure there's no clumps of flour. So as you see, it looks pretty smooth, which is ideal. And that's why we whisk together that flour and sugar first, and then we slowly distribute it into the milk. So I'm going to turn the heat back up, and I'm going to just stir this. And I'm going to cook this for 1 to 2 minutes. The way we know it's ready is when we go to scrape away the bottom of the pot, it's clean. It leaves a clean streak. Just stir constantly. Keep it on about medium heat. Always scrape the edges, bottom edges of your pan. And just keep scraping and keep mixing, keep everything moving. I'm going to turn the heat down even more because I want this flour to really cook in this roux. Make sure all this flour is cooked thoroughly. So see, it's coming away from the bottom of the pot with no residue when I scrape it. So we know it's ready now. So we're going to transfer this into a bowl. Turn off the heat. Transfer this to I prefer using a glass bowl. And I'm going to just scrape all that and pour it into the bowl. You should have no lumps, and you see there are no lumps in here. If you have lumps, that means you probably dumped the flour in too quickly, or you didn't mix the flour and sugar together enough. Or you might have had your heat too hot. So I'm going to scrape all this off with a spoon. Now the next critical step. We're going to cover the top with plastic wrap. A cling film, food grade plastic. You must use plastic wrap or cling film. The reason why is because when it chills in the refrigerator, it will develop this will keep it from developing a film, and also this will keep any water from being on top of the surface. So that way, when you go to whip it, your final outcome won't be watery. So just press the plastic directly on top. Press all the air out. We're going to let this cool off in the fridge for at least 6 to 10 hours. Or better yet, we can let it chill overnight. So it's the next day, and I have my butter here. It's at room temp. It's cold. It's soft, but it's not like mushy. Let's see if you can see. It's soft, but it's not mushy. You don't want it to be where it's oily. So I'm going to cut the butter up into small pieces. This is another critical step when making your ermine. So I'm going to cut into even-sized pieces. We have to incorporate the butter in very small batches. I've seen ermine where it looks lumpy. It's because it wasn't whipped properly. So if your ermine is lumpy, it's because you're not whipping it properly. So this is the next critical step of getting a very smooth ermine frosting. So I'm just going to cut these into roughly like half-inch pieces or so. This is our roux that we prepared the previous day, and you see the plastic film is on here. I'm going to peel it off. You should have no water on the surface. There's no water. Now if you were to go to taste this right now, it's going to taste super sweet, but the butter is going to balance it out. So I'm going to put the whip attachment on. You must use the whip attachment. And I'm going to whip this for 3 minutes on high speed. So it's been 3 minutes. So what I'm going to do now is slowly add the butter. We're going to whip the butter for about 30 seconds to a minute after adding it. We're not going to add it all at one time. So, butter. I'm going to whip it till I see all that butter completely whipped in there. You don't want to see no little bits of butter. So now that all that butter is almost dissolved, they're going to add the next little dot of butter. Now you can use salted or unsalted butter. It's totally up to you. I'm using salted butter. Now I'm going to add some more. I'm going to stop the machine and then just give it a scrape. Give everything a nice scrape here. Then I'm going to put the machine right down. I'm going to whip it. Now it may take a minute or two for that butter to dissolve, but just be very patient. So just repeat this process so all the butter's been added. So far it's been about 7 minutes total, and I still haven't finished whipping in all this butter. I've been stopping the machine and I've been scraping down the sides of the bowl. So I'm still adding butter. I have almost all of the butter added. I just wanted to show you, it's very important that you add it slowly, like I just wanted to show you that it's very important to whip all this butter in slowly, like I mentioned earlier. This will prevent your frosting from becoming very lumpy. And as you whip it over time, it's going to become lighter and whiter in color. That's because we're incorporating all this air. So back on high, I'm going to keep whipping until all the butter's added. And I'm going to let it whip for probably a good 3 to 4 minutes. Even longer if need to be after I've added all the butter. So I'm adding the last dot of butter. And I'm just going to let this whip for about 3 to 4 minutes. And I have it on high speed. But before I do finish whipping it, I'm going to add a couple of things to it. This is what's going to make it taste like mint chocolate chip ice cream. So I'm going to give everything a scrape. Just from the sides, a light scrape here. I'm going to put everything towards the bottom of the bowl. And then to this, I'm going to add some mint extract. And I'm going to add some vanilla extract. So I'm going to add both of these flavorings. That's the mint, and then I'm going to add the vanilla. And then after I add these two flavorings, I am going to add just a little bit of green food coloring. And I'm using green, it's called green leaf. So I'm going to add just enough to kind of give it a green color. If we need to add more food coloring, we can. So I'm going to whip this. So I think this is it. I don't think it needs to be whipped anymore because it's very smooth. So I'm going to give everything a scrape and just kind of fold everything by hand. So I'm going to put in some mini chocolate chips, and I'm using the mini ones because they're extremely small and you can pipe it through a piping bag that has a large opening. I'm not going to put too much in there because you don't want it to clog the piping bag. You want to add enough of the chocolate chips to where, you know, it's noticeable and you can taste it. So I'm going to add a little bit more chocolate chips because it's not quite noticeable. And I'm just going to fold everything. Now, usually I would have enough to do about 24 to 18 to 24 cupcakes. It just depends on how big and how much you use. But I always normally end up having to triple the batches. But as you see, it looks like mint chocolate chip ice cream. I'm going to use this on top of my Shamrock Shake cheesecake. The video will be on my cooking channel. So in the description box, when the video is uploaded, you'll find it there. But this is how you make mint chocolate chip Ermine frosting. Please try this recipe. If you have any questions whatsoever, please leave them in the comments section and I will answer your questions. I hope that you find this tutorial helpful, and please subscribe, leave me a thumbs up, add it to a playlist, share the video, and thank you so much for watching The Sugary Sweet, where we're going to be making the world a little bit sweeter.